Hello, and welcome to Create and Play, Hull Truck Theatre's homeschooling drama lessons for 4 to 7-year-olds. My name is Finn. What you'll need for this session: paper, pens and colouring in crayons, and you. Do you know that every time a story gets told, it changes a little bit? Well, this is our version of The Selfish Giant, written by Oscar Wilde. You can join in, if you like, by making the sound effects or by acting out what the characters say or do. And if there are any other homeschoolers with you, maybe you might like to help them join in. Now, every story has to happen somewhere. And our story happens in a garden. Not just any garden, but the best garden that you can imagine. I want you to think of that garden. Close your eyes. Imagine what the garden looks like. What can you see? Can you see trees and bushes and ponds and swings? What can you hear? Can you hear the birds tweeting? What about the wind rustling through the grass? What can you smell? Can you smell the flowers? Great. Hold that in your head. This garden was so great that children loved to play there. They played all their favourite games. What's your favourite game? Well, the children played that, and it was the best garden ever. But this garden belonged to the giant, and the giant had been away visiting his friend, the Cornish ogre. But when he came back, he saw that the children had been playing in the garden, and he went, well, what do you think the giant did when he saw the children playing in his garden? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to practice. Are you ready? Go. Have a go. How did the giant sound? What did they say? Did they say anything to the children? Few seconds left. Okay, are you ready? I'm going to say that part of the story again, and I want you to give your best giant impression. Okay, here we go. The giant had been away visiting his friend, the Cornish ogre. And when he came back, he saw that the children had been playing in the garden. Get ready, this is your bit. And the giant went... Wow, that was amazing, well done. So the giant thought for a moment, and then he made a keep out sign. Imagine you're the giant. I want you to make your own keep out sign. It can say anything you want, and it can have pictures on it too. I'll give you 5 minutes. Ready? Go. Grab your paper, your pencils and your crayons, and let's make the best keep out sign that you can. What will your sign look like? Will it be big for everyone to see, or small? Imagine you're the giant. Your sign needs to keep the children out of the garden. What will it say? Will it say, keep out? Will it be a scary sign? Could it be a nice sign, asking the children to politely stay away from the garden? Will it have a picture? You've got 3 minutes left. What colours will it be? Have you decorated yours? You can use your crayons, your colours, felt tip pens. If you're lucky and you've got paint, use that. Two minutes to go. Can you stick anything on your sign? How are your signs getting along? That's 1 minute left. Remember, the giant doesn't want the children to play in their garden. Start to finish the drawing you've been doing. Get ready to show me your signs. Are you ready? Show me your signs. Oh, they're ace. I love them. That was amazing. Great. Now let's pop them in the garden. Here's one that we made. After the sign was put up, one of the bravest children crept slowly forward and they knocked on the door. Would you be the bravest child creeping slowly forward? Or would you be the one that hid at the back, safely watching from afar? Give it a go whilst I do this next bit. The children heard footsteps striding down the hallway. Boom, boom, boom. Huge bolts were pulled back. Massive chains clattered open. An enormous key turned in an immense lock. And the door creaked slowly open. There, stood the grumpiest giant anyone had ever seen. And the giant said, "What do you want? I was asleep. Why have you woken me up? I don't want smelly children messing my garden up. Now clear off." I want you to be the giant again. Have a think about what the giant would say to the children who knocked on the door. I'll give you 30 seconds to think of what they would say. Ready? Go. What do you think the giant would say to the children knocking on the door? The giant has just been woken up, so he's feeling grumpy. How would that make him feel? And what would he say? How is the giant standing? What is your giant going to say? A few seconds left. All right, are you ready? I'm going to do that bit of the story again, and I want you to be the giant who answers the door. Here we go. The children heard footsteps striding down the hall. Boom, boom, boom. Huge bolts were pulled back. Massive chains clattered open. An immense key turned in an enormous lock. And the door slowly creaked open. There stood the grumpiest giant anyone had ever seen. This is your bit. And the giant said, "Oh, amazing, well done. I love that." And with that, the giant slammed the door shut and stomped back into the castle. The next day, when the children walked past the garden after school, they saw the giant had put up huge walls, fences, and hedges all around the garden. The giant had done everything they could to keep the children out. Eventually, winter came to the garden. Snow arrived, trailing her long cloak over the grass, covering the ground beneath her in a blanket, and draping herself over branches. Snow invited her friend Jack Frost, who danced over the treetops and the rooftops, painting everything silver, turning water to stone and making the ground hard as iron. Their friend and colleague, the North Wind, blew through for a quick visit and had such a good time tearing about the garden. He stayed for months, flinging things about and shivering the windows and doors. And when Hail came to stay, she rattled down for 3 hours each day so hard that she broke nearly every window in the giant's house. All this time, the giant stayed shut up in the freezing cold, wondering why spring would not come. I'm going to tell you what the giant did, and I want you to do it straight away with me. You might want to jump up for this bit. As the giant lay in their cold bed, their body began to shiver. Shiver your body. And as their body began to shiver, their knees began to knock those knees. And as their knees began to knock and their whole body shivered, their teeth began to chatter those teeth. And as their teeth began to chatter and their knees began to knock and their whole body shivered, they let out a massive sneeze. Achoo! And as they let out a massive sneeze, achoo! And their whole body shivered and their knees began to knock and their teeth began to chatter, they let out a massive sigh. Then one morning, as the giant lay shivering in their bed, they heard a sound they had not heard for a long time. The giant poked their nose out of the covers, and their breath curled and vanished like ghosts in the frosty air. Outside the window there was a bird, a little linnet, singing as if it would burst with joy. And the branch it was sat on was pushing out pink buds and unfurling shiny new leaves. The giant leapt out of bed and went over to the window, and he looked out. The sun beat down on his face and warmed him to the heart. Below he could see the children playing. They had found a way in through a hole in the wall that the frost had created. And as the children came into the garden to play, they brought spring with them. It was in that moment that the giant realized what he had done. And he cried out, "I have been so selfish. Of all the flowers in my garden, the children are the most precious." And with that, he called down to the children, "Children!" And they stopped. And they stared. And the children, well, what would you do if a giant called at you from their window? Would you run? Would you hide? Would you stand up to the giant? Give it a go now. And the children ran in all different directions. And the giant cried, "Stop! Stop, I don't want you to go." And with that, the giant picked up their giant axe and went over to the wall and smashed the wall, blow after blow, until the fences and the hedges and the wall were just rubble. And then the children came back into the garden to play. And they played all their favourite games, and the giant watched on. Until one child noticed that the giant wasn't joining in. It was plain to see that the giant didn't know how to play these games. So the children taught the giant how to play their games. And the giant noticed their sign. He looked at his sign and he said, "I don't want that sign anymore." And the giant and the children played for many long years after. That brings us to the end of our version of the selfish giant. Perhaps you could tell it to someone else. Thanks for watching. See you next time.